The video I want to do today is, it's a response to a lot of things that I've heard online and on the telly about people being worried about how quickly this vaccine came to market. Because it looks, for all intents and purposes, like within a year it was dreamt up, made, tested and gone out, which would be worrying. So I want to try and reassure people about that. So the first thing to realise is that the people who made these vaccines didn't start from scratch. In fact, they didn't start anywhere near from scratch. So the technology that went behind them, the mRNA and the DNA technology, was actually starting to be developed in the late 60s, early 70s. And it wasn't used for vaccines then, it was used for, a number of things, but making human insulin is one of them. But that's quite a long story, that's a video all on its own, so I won't go into that now. But that's when it started being played around with, this technology. Then in 2002 there was the SARS outbreak in Asia, and that was the severe acute respiratory syndrome that we've heard about, caused by a coronavirus. So scientists then took the mRNA and the DNA technology that had been being developed since the 70s and used that in the first lot of vaccines that they made for SARS. Then in 2012 there was the MERS outbreak, which is the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, which again is another coronavirus almost identical to COVID, and they used the technology that they used on the SARS vaccine and developed that into the MERS vaccine. I should say as well that during that development, the vaccines were made and they were also they went into clinical trials. So along came the COVID-19 pandemic, and the scientists working on those vaccines worked with the guys who developed the MERS vaccine. Anyone who's seen that first video I've done on how the vaccine works heard me talking about mRNA recipe cards. So with the COVID vaccine, the mRNA recipe card makes these little proteins that sits on the COVID spike that the immune system then sees, and that's how we train the immune system to deal with it. Well, the MERS vaccine did that first, using the little proteins that are found on the MERS coronavirus spike. So when the guys who started developing the COVID vaccine, they got together with the MERS guys, they took out that mRNA recipe card and they inserted a new mRNA recipe card that, instead of making the MERS COVID spikes, makes the corona COVID spike. So really early on in the pandemic, so as early as early March, that vaccine had already come into being and they'd already started doing clinical trials. And I think by the end of March there was like 100,000 different human volunteers being injected with the COVID-19 vaccines in 3 different countries, actually 4 different countries I think. So whilst it looks like it came about really quickly, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic that it was actually made, and the rest of the time it's being tested and then developed and rolled out. So it's a lot better than it looks. That same RNA DNA technology has also been used in vaccines that are non-coronavirus vaccines. So something called the Nipah virus, that was out in 2012 as well, I think. And also in 2009, they just started doing clinical trials of this amazing breakthrough HIV vaccine that again uses the RNA technology. And those guys had to delay, they paused their trials in 2020, obviously because of the pandemic. And the guys that were working on that actually downed tools and started working on the COVID vaccines instead. So they brought along all their know-how and technology and put it into the COVID vaccines. So whilst it sounds like it's all happened very quickly, it actually hasn't. And that's partly because it's been going on for so long, but also because of the huge amount of people involved in developing them and that collaborative kind of atmosphere that's been part of it. Also, actually, there's even a prostate cancer treatment that uses that technology that was approved in 2010, and that's also been used in lots of people and is looking really good too. So hopefully that reassures you a little bit safety and testing wise. The other reason why the vaccines come around so quickly is because of the insane amount of money that's been thrown at it. So there's estimates of something like $60 billion worldwide have now been invested into the COVID vaccine developments across the board. And that's not even how much has been spent on buying them, that's just how much has been spent in developing them. So it's probably a better picture than you think, based on what the media half tells you. But at the end of the day, there is, as with all science, we have to take a leap of faith, and you've got to trust them, because we've had to do that our whole lives. If you think about bone marrow transplants and organ donations and heart bypasses and things like that, at the beginning they would have sounded scary, and we just had to trust them, and now they're part of everyday life. If I went down to an isolated tribe in the Amazon and talked about having a baby with IVF, they would be gobsmacked. They'd think I was mad. But obviously we can get that on prescription in the UK if you want it now. So there is always going to be that element. You just have to take a leap of faith and have a bit of trust in it. Because the reality is, if we don't, as I've said in other videos, the longer the virus is out there, the more it's mutating, and the more it mutates, the more trouble we're in. And at the moment, the people who've developed this vaccine, who, I don't want to trivialise their work for a second, it might sound like I am, but I'm not, they've given us this advantage now. We're a few generations ahead of the virus, so we're in the position now where we could actually eradicate it. But if we mess about too long, then the virus is going to keep mutating and the vaccine won't work on it. And the way these amazing vaccines are being developed is you can take out the mRNA recipe card for the spike, and you can insert in a new version of a new mutated variant if you want to, and that's brilliant. But unfortunately, that's going to take so long to get out to the masses. A new mutation arrives, and we're back to the square one. So if we don't use the advantage now we've got with this vaccine, we're constantly going to be playing catch up with it, and then we're going to be in trouble. And the problem is, I think there's still a bit of a climate of distrust, and I think partly that's partly because, again, there's just not enough information out there. And whenever new vaccines have come out in the past, they've not been under the scrutiny that this one is. And now we've got social media, which is absolutely full of either vague and rubbish information, or even sometimes deliberately misinformation. So it's really hard for people to work out what's going on. And also, I think we unfortunately don't trust our governments and the powers that be anymore. So we've got presidents and prime ministers that are constantly caught lying and getting away with it. And I think because of that, it erodes the confidence we have in them, and we don't feel like they're looking out for us anymore. And so everybody thinks that I need to look out for myself a bit more. So they get a little bit of information, and they go online and they Google scientific phrases that they kind of half understand. And sometimes in those situations, a little bit of information is actually more damaging than not. And I think that's also why the anti-vax movement and lots of these conspiracy groups, they thrive in this situation, because they say, well, we're like you, we're not like them. So listen to us and we'll look after you, and that's appealing to many people, because what they tend to do is they get a little bit of scientific knowledge that either they deliberately or accidentally mingle in with a load of absolute rubbish, and it's easier to believe, and you, as I say, people trust them. So unfortunately, you have to make those decisions for yourself. I think, we even maybe need to start teaching kids in school how to, look at information, how to critically evaluate evidence. It's kind of almost where we're going with the social media and that we have in our lives and the influence that they have on us. So what it's called for now is that leap of faith, trust in the science, because if we do trust in the science, we're going to get ahead of this virus and beat it. And if we don't, then we'll constantly be playing catch up, and we'll be in a mess. And there could be a point when all the anti-vaxxers say, oh no, we were wrong, but it's going to be too late by then. So we need to just make educated decisions for yourselves and get on with it. Because the reality is, you take leaps of faith all the time. We all do. Do you know all the ingredients that are in all the supplements that you have, your medications, the beauty products that you use? I mean, some of those adverts for beauty products, they actually make up scientific sounding words to flog their products, And most of us don't even raise a perfectly manicured eyebrow at that, we just accept it. We like the trade-off. I don't think that's the reality of it. And I think anyone who has had Botox injected in their face, which is a toxin made by bacteria, in fact, it's the same toxin that causes botulism that kills people. And if you've had that injected in your face, then I don't know whether you've got strong grounds really for being squeamish about any of this new vaccine technology. Interestingly, all of this RNA and DNA technology is now being picked up by the beauty market, and there are products coming online now, anti-aging products that are using this. And I think some of them might even be in clinical trials, but I'm not really sure about that. But I know for a fact they're definitely in development. And I think it'd be interesting to see the response when that stuff comes out, because again, that will be things that you're rubbing in your face and injecting into your face. And I've got a feeling that people will be a lot less squeamish about that too. So if you can put up with Botox and you can put up with anti-aging products because you see that the trade-off's good, then you might feel better about getting the vaccine. Because the trade-off with that is that as of today, 2 million people across the world have died of COVID-19. Hundreds of thousands, millions of people, I don't know, in long COVID. And again, probably millions of people have lost their jobs and their businesses because of this. So that's the balance that you have to bear in mind. That's the trade-off. That's the good bit. You have a bit of confidence in the scientists that have created this incredible vaccine. We get rid of it and we get our lives back. There, it's up to you. I really hope these videos have helped. If you've got any questions, then please leave them in the comment section and I'll see what I can do to help. Okay, good luck. Bye.